life. Curiosity brought you here. Consequences will keep you. At first, it all felt theatrical, elaborate puzzles, unsettling games of logic. Guests laughed nervously, thinking it was eccentric science. Then a scream erupted from behind the walls. A hidden camera was found in a shower, and one guest disappeared overnight. Myra, a brilliant graduate student, stumbled upon footage of a man strapped to a chair, electroshocked, while wealthy patrons watched behind one-way glass. She begged to leave. That night, she too was gone. Dr. Fell no longer called himself a professor. He was a puppet master. He named his work behavioral closure, forcing people past their breaking points and judging their worth like specimens in a cage. Whistleblowers were silenced, digital traces erased. Even his loyal followers, young, unemployed PhDs, were paid well until they asked many questions, and then they vanished. But one person escaped. His wife, a former psychologist, fled with her 2 children. Investigators later found her in a coastal town, trembling. When journalists asked if he ever stopped, she whispered, "No, he tested fear in everyone, even in love, even in us. We were never a family, only subjects." Another asked if she could take them to him. Her hand shook as she answered, "I can, but once we enter, the house will not let us leave." She led them back to the estate, where the compound rose out of the fog with its rusted gates and broken glass. Yet faint lights flickered inside as though someone had been waiting. The journalists filmed every step. One whispered, "It feels like it's been expecting us." The doors creaked open. On their own, they called into the shadows. "Fell, it's over. We just want to talk." A voice replied, "You shouldn't have come. Curiosity brought you here, but you will not leave." The wife cried out, "Adrian, stop this, please." Then he stepped into the dim light, older, pale, eyes burning with obsession. He smiled. "I know your names. I have studied you. You've already failed the test." Suddenly, screens lit up across the walls, showing every corridor and every room of the estate. The journalists saw themselves from angles they never knew existed. Fell's voice thundered, "You are all part of the final experiment." Doors slammed, lights flickered red, and the house itself seemed alive. One journalist tried to run, but a gunshot echoed, the camera hit the floor, and silence swallowed the hall. They buried him. They sealed the estate, yet legends spread. Every Halloween, lights flicker once more, and screams drift through the trees. Not screams of pain, but screams of realization that genius can be a mask and madness can be a throne. So beware the next invitation that promises knowledge, freedom, or escape, because somewhere the professor's estate is still recruiting. Curiosity brought you here. Now tell me, would you dare return? Imagine discovering that your own father, the man you trusted most, wasn't a healer, but a killer. Imagine confronting him only to wake up locked in a strange room, guarded like a prisoner, with your own mother helping to keep you trapped. This is the story of a respected doctor who turned his family into hostages of his dark secret. And it's a nightmare you won't forget. There are crimes so twisted, so cruel, that they feel like scenes ripped straight from a horror movie. But this story is not fiction. It is the chilling account of a respected doctor, a man once trusted with lives, who turned his own family into prisoners of his dark secrets. In a quiet town, he was known as successful, a physician with a wife and 1 daughter. He carried himself with the calm authority of someone who held people's lives in his hands. Neighbors admired him, patients trusted him. His daughter, a young nurse, followed a different path, working in a public hospital. She was loved by patients, praised by colleagues, and seen as a beacon of hope in the community. But behind the closed doors of her father's private clinic, there was no hope. The doctor's greed was stronger than his oath to heal. He had found a way to make money not by curing the sick, but by ending their lives. Patients who walked into his clinic never walked out again. And while his reputation remained clean, rumors began to spread. Whispers too faint to ignore. The daughter heard them. She overheard colleagues and townspeople say things that chilled her. Patients didn't die of their illness. They died because of her father. Terrified and torn, she confronted him one night. Her voice shook as she begged him, "Tell me it isn't true. If it is, you have to turn yourself into the police." But her father didn't break down in guilt. His eyes burned with fury, his voice low and threatening. He warned her, "Stay silent or suffer the consequences." But she was determined. She couldn't let this go. "If you don't surrender," she told him, "I'll make sure you're arrested." That was the moment her fate was sealed. The doctor began to act differently. He became strangely gentle with her, as if he had suddenly remembered how to be a caring father. For a short time, she almost believed he had changed. One evening, he invited her to dinner. He prepared the food himself, smiling as he served her plate. She never suspected that he had laced it with poison. As she ate, she began to feel strange. Her limbs grew heavy, her vision blurred, and soon her body went limp. She collapsed, slipping into unconsciousness, her father watching every second. When she finally woke, she wasn't in her own bed. She wasn't even in her hometown. Her father had taken her to a distant town far away from everything she knew. There, he locked her in a small, dark room. The windows were covered, the doors bolted, and outside stood a bodyguard paid to watch her day and night, making sure she never escaped. Her mother knew what had happened. She knew where her daughter was. But instead of saving her child, she chose to stand beside her husband. She stayed silent, protecting his secret. Days turned into weeks. The daughter was given just enough food to survive. The walls of the room became her prison. Every time she heard footsteps outside her door, she wondered if they were coming for her or if this was the moment her father would finally end her life. But secrets have a way of slipping through cracks, no matter how carefully they're buried. Rumors about the missing daughter reached the ears of investigative journalists. Curious and alarmed, they came to the doctor and his wife with questions. "Where is your daughter?" they asked. The couple smiled coldly, pretending nothing was wrong. "She's living happily in another town," they said. But the journalists weren't convinced. Something about the couple's story felt too polished, too rehearsed, and so they began to dig. They spoke to neighbors who whispered that the daughter had vanished suddenly without a word. They searched for official records but found nothing, no proof she had moved, no sign of her life in another town. The deeper they dug, the darker the trail became. Finally, the journalists uncovered the truth. Hidden in that distant town, in a locked and guarded room, they found her. She was pale, weak, and terrified. Her once bright eyes had dimmed with fear, but when the door opened, and she realized it wasn't her father, it wasn't the guard relief washed over her face. She had been alive, but barely surviving, imprisoned by the very man who had raised her. The discovery sent shock waves through the community. A respected doctor had been exposed as both a killer and a captor. His wife was revealed as an accomplice, choosing loyalty to her husband over the life of her only daughter. And the daughter herself, a nurse who saved lives, had been betrayed in the most horrifying way by the man who had given her life. What drives a person, especially a doctor sworn to protect life, to become a monster? Was it greed, fear of being exposed, or something darker, something that had always been inside him? Whatever the reason, the truth eventually came out. And when it did, it revealed not only a crime, but a nightmare. Because sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones lurking in shadows or hiding under beds. Sometimes the real monsters are the ones we trust the most, the ones who live right beside us, wearing the mask of family. And in this case, that mask finally slipped, revealing the true face of horror. If you found this story disturbing, remember this is just one of many chilling tales hidden in plain sight. Here on Unseen Evil, we bring to light the darkest stories most people never hear about. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another descent into the shadows. Because evil is everywhere and most of the time, it is unseen.
Behind every wealthy family lies a story they don't want you to know. This is the real-life nightmare of love, betrayal, blood, and loss that unfolded when a rich family's pride clashed with the heart of a poor man and left a trail of destruction in its path. Once upon a time, in a lavish neighborhood, lived a wealthy family with two daughters. One was their biological child, the other adopted but treated no differently. Or so it seemed. When the family hired a young man as their personal driver, humble, polite, and the son of a very poor family, no one imagined how deeply he would become entangled in their lives. Over time, the born daughter fell in love with this driver. Against her family's wishes, she insisted on marrying him. "How could our daughter marry the son of a poor man?" the family whispered in shame. But love won, and reluctantly, they allowed the marriage. What they didn't know was that this love story would turn into a tragedy. After the wedding, the couple began their modest life together. They were happy, deeply in love. The adopted sister often used to visit, talking for hours with her sister, sometimes about family, sometimes about money. You see, the family had opened a joint savings account in the names of the two sisters. And the adopted daughter, she wasn't happy with how things were being handled. These visits became more frequent, her tone sharper, her expressions colder, but no one thought much of it, until that one dreadful day. It started like any other afternoon. The two sisters had lunch together, laughed, chatted, nothing seemed off. Then the adopted sister told the housemaid to run an errand to go to the supermarket. What happened after would change everything forever. 11 hours later, the husband returned home from a late-night job, only to find his wife bleeding, seriously injured, struggling for breath. Through broken sobs, she whispered a name that crushed him. It was the adopted sister. But she has already gone. When the neighbors heard the screaming, they rushed in. But it was too late. The wife succumbed to her injuries, and the police arrived. Covered in blood, confused and panicked, the husband was arrested, accused of murdering his own wife. No one believed his story. Not the media. Not even the family. He was imprisoned for 6 months, broken, heartbroken, and labeled a killer. Eventually, the court found him innocent. There was no evidence tying him to the murder. But the damage was done. His spirit shattered. He turned to alcohol, his mind slipping away. That's when someone from his past stepped in. A woman, the daughter of his mother's friend who had always admired him silently, brought him back from the edge. She married him and slowly helped him rebuild. He started working again as a driver. Life seemed to be turning around. But peace was short-lived. 1 year and 7 months after his second marriage, he vanished. No calls, no visits. Not even to his sick mother or devoted sister. But what followed was even more disturbing. It was discovered that his second wife, and the adopted sister, yes, the one suspected of attacking his first wife, were now in close partnership. The adopted sister was buying her a car, renting her a luxury home, even funding a shop in her name. When the man's mother and sister questioned his wife, her only response was, "He called me. He said he's fine." But no one had heard from him. His mother's health deteriorated. The pain of losing her son once to prison, now to disappearance, was too much to bear. Was this all part of a bigger plan? Did love make him blind, or was he just a pawn in a game of wealth, jealousy, and betrayal? One thing is certain: what started as a love story between a poor driver and a rich girl became a haunting tale of manipulation, loss, and a man whose life was taken from him piece by piece. Be careful who you trust, because sometimes the danger lies closest to home. Subscribe to Unseen Evil channel for more videos, and like and share the video if you like it.